Derek is, you got a name for like hair loss prevention, right? And he got one of those helmets. It's like a couple $1,000s. You don't turn it on too long. You're going to turn into Superman. He's got one of those helmets that he put on, and he tried. Yeah, so one of those, but he paid like a couple $1,000s for it, and he said it didn't really do anything. So for the guys who are not aware, welcome to the Anabolic Roundtable, episode 21, with the two hair loss experts who have regrown their hair through various different methods, and myself. I'm allergic to hair. This is all you see and all you get. That's all I want in my life. This I got to trim every 3 days to make it nice and tidy. We're going to discuss the big three: hair loss, gyno, and acne. And then maybe we get to the fourth point, but it's probably another episode. Talk about gut distension, which is like the fourth hidden risk of megadosing steroids and then some. We got Dr. Dean said Mart, Kurt Havens, and myself. 2 out of 3 have regrown their hair. So let's start there. I'm completely oblivious to hair loss, guys. So I'm just going to nod and say, and ask the dumb questions that the audience are going to ask, and let these two guys talk. Please fill us in on your hair loss journey and how that's coming back, Kurt, because you're regrowing it. Mm-hmm. And Dean did like the last resort method, just to do the fucking transplant. So let's get started with Kurt first, because this is the first time that Kurt is without a beanie in a very long time.
Yeah, I've gotten so used to wearing hats that I just wear them all the time now. My daughter, I didn't wear one the other day, and my daughter said, "Wow, your hair is really growing. It's really getting thick."
So you don't even show it to your own family?
No, because I just put a hat on. I forget about it. I forget about it. Just used to being bald. So I wasn't. I as far as I know, I'm not genetically predisposed to baldness. This doesn't really run in my family. I had a great head of hair until Trenbolone, halo testing, those sorts of things. And then I did very little to manage it falling out.
Right.
My wife pointed it out to me at one point. And the common thing is, once you've really started to notice hair loss, you probably lost almost half the hair on your head. Yeah. Like, it's pretty extreme when you can see, because you have a ton of hair. She pointed it out to me, and it was coming out aggressively. And I was in the middle of show prep. I was really close to a show, and I was nervous to do much about it because I didn't want to screw anything up. So I let it go, which was not the wisest move. And then I just started using Minoxidil after that show, which is obviously not going to that'll help regrow hair, but it's not going to stop it from falling out. Right. So it continued to fall out at a faster rate than I could regrow it. And then I gave up on it for a while. I think for the first 2 years we were doing shows, I didn't really care. Moves to what it was. But I think, like I said to you before we started recording, when you don't have the ability to do something, sometimes it makes you want to do it, right? You could grow your hair if you chose, that you just choose not to. So for you, it's not a big deal, and I have a nice head, and if it weren't an option, it is what it is. But it's not having the ability to have hair was super frustrating to me. And I wanted to avoid surgery if I could. I wasn't opposed to it, but it was kind of a last resort. I think I've spent, hundreds, if not thousands of hours in an operating room. I've seen every kind of surgery. There are risks, even with routine cosmetic procedures. So it's not something that I take lightly. So I was trying to avoid that.
Yeah, I would consider the hand transplant to be last resort, just like with acne. Accutane is the last resort.
Yeah.
Right.
So I use that as well. We talk about acne. I used Accutane as well, but this is the original Roche, Hop and LaRoche Accutane from back in the day. So what I started doing in the last, I guess, 2 years, as long as I've been on a cruise, I stopped my last cycle almost 2 years ago. I was using RU. Sorry, back up. My last cycle, I started using RU 58841 and Minoxidil. And I think that stopped. And I think that stopped the progression of the hair loss. I don't recall any hair falling out with that. But it was kind of at a holding point, I think, because the cycle was heavy and, it wasn't enough to really counteract much, just kind of stop it. And when I went on a cruise, I decided, I'm just on TRT. probably should start to look at regrowing my hair, right? Because it's going to be the easiest. I would say from a hair safety point of view, testosterone and growth hormone are probably going to be the safest two things, only because testosterone you can manage these side effects from, right? You could say nandrolone or something, but I wouldn't do a nandrolone only cycle personally.
It's a trade-off, right? I mean, if you can manage the hair loss side effects or the acne or the gynecomastia from test, but ancillaries or not taking so much test, and keeping your body fat levels low, then why not,
Yeah. So I started using, I basically stopped using the RU since I wasn't using any stronger androgens, and I just switched to a topical finasteride and minoxidil. I've tried various shampoos. I honestly can't say that any of them do anything that the other ones don't do. You could honestly use cheap shampoo as far as I'm concerned. I think that's a hoax. The topical combination of the finasteride and the minoxidil seemed to basically start regrowing. I noticed it almost right away that there were little tiny baby fellas hairs starting to grow. Okay. And then it just took time, I think, for them to get thicker, right? Enter that growth phase and get longer. It's still an ongoing process. It's a lot better than it was. I mean, I sent you pictures. You could always put them up of before. I mean, I basically had no hair on the top of my head.
No, you were green bald.
So it's come a long way. Hopefully, see if it'll get as thick as Dean's.
Dean is super thick. Yeah. If I grow it, my hair will be thicker than Dean's. I guarantee it. Yeah.
I had a lot of hair when I was younger. Yeah. So
I seem to be immune to it. I want to ask Kurt, what was it, 5% or 2.5% finasteride and 5% or 10% minoxidil? Do you remember?
2.5. So it's the HIMS brand, HIMS. Okay. They sell like a spray. It's doctor prescribed. You just go on their website. I'm not sponsored by them. I don't get any kickbacks from them. I'm just being honest with what product I used. It was the easiest to get. It's 7% minoxidil. The one downfall is they recommend you spray it once a day, which minoxidil should be used twice. Yeah. My understanding. So I was kind of using it twice a day and then running out faster and then kind of convincing them to send me more faster. The one downfall I think of the HIMS is their prescription guidelines kind of regulate how often you can get it. So you have to be really careful with rationing it. I don't know why they care. They're not really controlled substance.
Well, the problem with minoxidil is that with too much topical applications, and I've seen this on bloodwork consultations, is that it can go systemic, and then it acts as a very potent sex hormone and neurotransmitter, neurosteroid inhibitor. So the sex hormone cascade kind of gets downregulated, and then people get depressed, or they lose their libido, or they get weird other side effects. And you see that a lot with the guys that are not on TRT that start megadosing minoxidil and ketoconazole. It goes systemic, especially if you combine it with derma rolling. Right? And you create these microabrasions, and then it literally goes in there. These guys are fanatic, obviously. And then they wonder why their libido is so bad. And if you do the research on which enzymatic reactions are inhibited by ketoconazole and minoxidil, you see that it's a lot. I'll link that video down below, guys, for the steroidogenesis inhibitors. Yeah, it's quite bad. But you didn't experience any side effects, any redness of the
I'm still on
skin,
TRT. So, I mean, is it really going to counteract? For a large portion of that time, I was on 300 test, like I talked about on previous videos. I've recently reduced it to 2. Figuring, let me see. I was trying to follow Dean's lead with this to see with the minimal amount that I could function on without losing muscle. So far, 2 doesn't seem much different than 3.
I can't recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the person. I feel fine on 2, so for now I'll stay on 2.
How long has it been on 200?
A couple months, 3 months maybe.
Okay, yeah, that's at the 3.5 month mark. I was like, fuck this. I'm going back to 300.
Well, the funny thing is now, even if I debate doing a cycle now, I'm like, shit, I don't want to lose what hair. I just regrew. So now it's like kind of like I'm trying to focus on this and not on that. So it's not that I don't think about it sometimes, but it's counterintuitive for the current goal.
And how long do you think you need until you get that full set of hair with the lines, manes, and mega perm? And
I don't know, 6 months, another 6 months.
Another 6 months. Okay. So by the end of the year, you're going to be looking like Dean. Yeah.
I think so. Hopefully. We'll see. But
Dean, what's your story?
Cool.
I guess my hair, I had really good hair up until I was 29, 30. Really thick, really strong hair. And again, we've covered the celiac diagnosis around age 30s when my gut started to go out the window. And I specifically remember the summer after Charlie was born, 2021, And Morgan was commenting to me that there was so much hair on my pillow, like every day. She's like, something's not right, Ian. And like Kurt said, unless you're actively trying to like keep your hair, you just sort of go, oh, okay, yep, it is what it is. But at the same time, you're worried that you're going to lose your hair. So you start using things like Minoxidil, Finasteride. And I have it somewhere on my profile from back in 2021 when my hair was quite bad and very thin and very brittle, and how it changed over, say, 10 weeks with RU, GHK-Cu, Microneedling, and blah, blah, all these things that we know about. But the hair that had fallen out because of the systemic inflammation of celiac disease, androgenic alopecia. So we have to back up. There's two forms of alopecia, either scarring or non-scarring. Scarring is the type where the hair follicle effectively becomes fibrosed or scarred, and the follicle detaches from the dermal papilla, which is like where your stem cells are. And that hair follicle is gone forever unless you transplant another follicle in. But androgenic alopecia is a non-scarring alopecia in terms of, yes, the hair will miniaturize, the hair will fall out, but in theory, you should be able to regrow it, provided the hair follicle hasn't become scarred. So when my hair had started to not regrow and sort of the recession on both sides of my head, some of it is genetic in terms of like all my uncles are bald. So I sort of knew from my maternal line that my hair was probably headed for a shaved head at some point. But on the other side, the fact that my hair was very thick for like, I started competing in 2012 and we're talking 2021. That's like 9 years and my hair is staying solid on my head. So it's not, it was all the gear that made your hair fall out. So when eventually it came to the point where I seen like the recession was quite bad, those hair follicles are scarred, they're not coming back. That's where you have to resort to a transplant to fill in the hair follicles that have effectively died.
Yeah. You were at a point beyond no return, basically.
Well, you weren't going to regrow. Like no matter how much I tried, and I gave it a good shot. And this is sort of the same with what we talked about later with gyno. Once you have solid gyno tissue, no matter how many letrozole, raloxifene, whatever genie magic protocol you read on the internet, the only way that's getting out is through surgery. So, with hair, I learned that if you have scarred alopecia where the hair follicle is basically gone, it has to be replaced with a transplant hair, or you just accept that you're going to be bald.
Right.
Obviously, I was happy. We all had, the three of us had shaved heads. I actually liked the low maintenance of a shaved head, but obviously my wife didn't like the aesthetics of a shaved head. So I took the plunge and went and got a hair transplant.
Yeah.
Would I say, like Kurt said, that it's something you should jump into immediately? I think at that point, I was 36, turning 37 last year. I sort of figured, if this is where my hair loss is extended to from the celiac, reversing the gut dysfunction, reversing the thyroid dysfunction, all those sort of things, my hair should be in a good place then when I have a transplant. The transplanted hair will grow back nice and thick, and like there it is there from the top since the transplant. And so, shows you can have these underlying dysfunctions and people are saying, oh, it's gear and whatever else. Half the time you look at hair loss, and we've covered it before and people are all in denial of it. There's no doubt steroids cause hair loss, but there's 7 other root cause dysfunctions of hair loss: thyroid, nutrition imbalance, medications. Again, when we look at medications, we're talking about even chemicals in the environment, what you're exposing your scalp to, local temperature of the scalp, blood flow to the scalp, estrogen imbalances. There's so many things
Stress,
other than just...
you get those stress patches where people start to lose hair in certain parts of their head, and then just things like simple hygiene.
Yeah, I mean like telogen, effluvium is what that is when you're severely stressed. And your hair goes through a cycle phase of anagen, which is growth, catagen, which is sort of like the resting phase to speak, telogen, which is where the hair is basically dormant, and then you have exogen, where you shed the hair and you regrow, from a new hair follicle. So if we're looking at just steroids, like DHT, for example, and the local inflammatory process of DHT, the immune dysfunction, the potential low estradiol. So it's sort of like when you take a load of Primo and Masteron and your hair falls out.
Oh, wait a minute. But the scientific evidence says that there's no hair loss on Masteron as a footnote. Right underneath, sponsored by Syntax.
In terms of like the mechanism there, on one part it is androgen signaling. On the other side, it could be skewed local estrogen signaling as well, because estrogen is really important for blood flow to the scalp. And I've seen it before in consults, and this is not advice, but if there's any women listening here, when you see hair loss in women athletes using PEDs, it's not finasteride that's normally the first thing to reach for. It's topical biestrin cream. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as you start applying it to the areas where the hair is falling out, oh, my hair is growing again. It's like, well, you've plummeted your estrogen levels topically in your scalp with non-aromatizing androgens. So your hair is going to fall out from the local estrogen imbalance. So,
before you reach to the ketoconazole shampoo to improve blood flow, maybe apply some topical estrogen, even as a man, depending on what you're running and what your serum testosterone or estradiol levels are at. Is it a valid option for men or only for women in contest prep, megadosing the aromatase inhibitors?
I think very sensitive in terms of context. Now, in saying that, I think I'd have to go back and look at some of my notes in terms of the amount of estrogen a man makes. From what I remember, it's somewhere around half a milligram of estrogen per day, I think, Kurt, it's roughly around that. So if we're looking at, a topical cream and it's a 100 microgram dose, that's 1/5 of what you make, like 500 micrograms is half a milligram. In theory, would that small little 100 microgram play off? Perhaps, but a cream is very hard to dose appropriately. Like take a pea-sized amount of cream. What's a pea-sized amount of cream? And then all of a sudden you're 100 micrograms.
Pumps usually. Pump is usually 1 milliliter. And then you would have to take 0.1%.
Be quite a low dose.
Yeah.
So in terms of, can you do it? Yes. Will estrogen side effects start manifesting? Maybe, depends. Again, if it goes from topical into systemic circulation. Again, this is all dependent on the carrier, how well it can pass through the dermal layer into blood flow and systemic circulation. But, when we're looking at hair loss and just blaming gear alone, there's a lot of things like thyroid dysfunction, too much or too little thyroid hormone, nutrient imbalances, like megadosing.
So the nutrient, and with the steroids, you can give yourself a nutrient imbalance because all the hypertrophy and the muscle growth signaling that you're causing by this bodybuilding journey is literally stealing the nutrients away from other tissues, right? Whether that's zinc, vitamin A, vitamin D, and everything you needed for hair growth. I mean, the collagen, the keratin, all that stuff, you're literally stealing that away. And then people wonder why their hair is getting brittle. It's not falling out, but it's
GLA. GLA is for prostaglandins. So if you're growth hormone, Trenbolone, things like that, they're going to cause a big prostaglandin response for stem cells. Right. Can deplete that and then your hair will fall out.
And of course, the oxidative stress that you're inducing yourself to is then not good for your skin or your hair growth. Yep. So again, you have to look at the total picture. Just because you're on steroids or just because your DHT is slightly elevated doesn't mean that that's the root cause of your hair loss. And I've seen so many people that fix their supposed hair loss, their thinning of the hair, the brittling of the hair, by simple supplements like copper, for example. They're copper deficient. Just supplement that in, and their gray hairs or their brittle hairs suddenly a lot better. They're not really experiencing hair loss or hair follicle miniaturization. It's just a side effect of a nutrient imbalance.
I was going to say with showering, like you're on about nutrient deficiency, depending on the content of your water, whether it's hard or soft, the minerals that are in it, the amount of chlorine, fluoride, etc., that's going to impact the quality of your hair as well. Sorry to cut you off, Kurt.
No, it's okay. I'm sorry. I was going to say I used the GLK, the copper GHK, and zinc thymolene as well. I didn't really notice anything particularly fantastic from either of them. Not that there's some research to show they help, but In my case,
I think the GHK copper generally helps with microneedling. So usually people combine both of them. So they do, you don't do the roller because the roller creates like little abrasions, like little slices because it rolls. So they have like a punch cutter basically. They just start hammering wherever they want the blood flow. And then they apply the GHK copper for that to kind of permeate into the skin a little bit better, even though based on the chemical structure and the molecular weight, it should be able to permeate. And otherwise it can go into the hair follicle and kind of do its localized effect there. Now, of course, you don't want too much scarring, because GHK can create a little bit of scar tissue through the collagen deposition. So it's not something you would want to overdo, because otherwise you make your skin thick and that might impair your blood flow then again.
I forget the medical term, Kurt, for scalp thickening.
The cavitation?
Where you've got the cavitation, where you've got the ridges on it, like Steve, you don't have much there. Your head is nice and solid.
I think honestly, this is from just sleeping on my side. But I know guys that have like
in the back, especially.
Yeah, they look like walnuts. Yeah, serrata areata, something like that. There's a medical term for it. We call it walnut skull.
So it's called cutis verticus gyrata, ridges on the scalp. So normally, again, with that occurring, you have excessive collagen deposition into the scalp. So you have thickening of the scalp, and that can impede blood flow locally. So obviously when we use topical minoxidil, you're trying to improve nutrient delivery, improve blood flow to the scalp to bring nutrients. With the microneedling, personally, post-transplant, I was doing IPRF, so it's platelet-rich fibrin as opposed to platelet-rich plasma. I went for PRF moreover, so PRP, because PRF tends to have the scaffolding proteins and the intact white blood cells within the supernatant when it's spun, as opposed to just being the plasma that's being injected with PRP. But how they do it, Emma, the nurse that does the treatment for me, she will inject the PRF into the scalp directly all around the new hairline. And then she'll micro pen or derma pen the area with like topically applied, whatever is left over from not injecting, she'll apply it to the scalp and actually derma pen it into the scalp itself. And that definitely has had a good impact onto how the hair regrew post-transplant. But like that, again, you're doing the derma pen, creating the little micro wound, you're allowing the PRF to be absorbed into the area locally. And then after that treatment, she'll do about 15 minutes of near infrared, like a near infrared helmet that you just sit and have a nap after having it applied. Yeah. But like, I mean, simple modalities like that, you're just playing into the mitochondria health. And I think even in terms like hair loss, there are some new therapies now that are on about reactivating I wouldn't say reactivating the mitochondria, but reinitiating signaling in the hair follicle, that if the hair follicle has, I guess, become dormant, aside from minoxidil, we have these new signaling molecules that will help reinitiate the hair follicle to start growing again. So there's about 4 or 5 small molecules that are being investigated for that purpose alone. And I think some of them have been quite remarkable in the animal models of having a completely bald animal and then this selectively like switching off hair growth in the animal, and then this compound reactivates the hair growth. So I think in the next maybe 5 years, the hair growth landscape is going to drastically change to where it is now, where you really only have 2 approved like FDA treatments, which is Minoxidil, Finasteride / Dutasteride.
Right. Yeah, and then a Ketoconazole and the RU5 8841. Yeah, that is kind of being used. And there's a couple of experimental things on there that are similar, like experimental androgen blockers or 5-alpha reductase inhibitors or other things that improve blood flow. And then GHK copper is, effect for some people, but that's pretty much it. And again, some of these protocols do not work for people who are mitochondrially deficient and in a chronic nutritional deficit. So I would, again, fix that first, because, doing either hair transplant or this entire protocol it makes you, or you have to assume that all the building blocks are there, and not that you're in subject of a lot of oxidative stress. Because you see it, like I'm sure you've seen it with a lot of guys that want to do a hair loss protocol. Some of them have a very specific look, and they kind of look unhealthy, a little bit stringy, not too much muscle tissue, a lot of hair everywhere else. But it looks like they've been in a chronic unhealthy state, and then they wonder why their libido and hair loss is kind of off the marker. It's because their entire body is unhealthy.
And I think that's sort of where, I guess, where hair loss we've talked about before, but post-finasteride syndrome in terms of like the risks. And I think at this point, the research consensus is that it's not psychosomatic, and that, you took finasteride and now you've developed this problem. It is clinically real now, but whether the extent of it is biochemical or on another side psychosomatic, there's a lot that you have to unwrap with PFS. That is there issues whereby the 5-alpha reductase enzyme is now non-functioning due to NADP or NADPH deficiency that we talked about before?
Yeah.
Is there chronic oxidative stress from poor insulin signaling or G6PD deficiency where they're not producing that pentose 5-phosphate pathway is really important for making NAD. If you're eating a very high carb diet, like a very nutrient lacking diet as well, you're going to be potentially NAD deficient or vitamin B1 deficient or vitamin B2. There's a whole host of things to unpack with PFS nutritionally. And then you can sort of layer in, okay, are there metabolic issues? Is the aromatase enzyme suffering as well? Because that requires NADP as well. Is there a low estrogen, or is there too much estrogen? And is that estrogen impacting serotonin and dopamine balance? There's a whole host of things that can go wrong for the, I think it's clinically, I think they estimate it's 1 to 5%, I think, that are at risk of developing it. I'd have to double check the statistics, but it is.
No, but there's a decent percentage. And you got to remember the reason why it also lasts so long is because you have long-term downregulation of the 3 iso enzymes of the 5-alpha reductase. The weird thing is that diet testosterone upregulates 5-alpha reductase enzyme expression. That's why when you take exogenous DHT, which is what I'm doing now, in the long term, you might have a compounding effect of testosterone converting into DHT because your 5-alpha reductase enzymes are upregulated from the DHT that you're injecting, plus anti-estrogenic effects at the estrogen receptor site, right, the DNA transcription, and the reduction of testosterone converting into estradiol by inhibiting the aromatase enzyme. So it's one of those compounds that's meant to be respected. That's why I'm starting at a modest dose of 350 milligrams against the advice of all the guys that are knowledgeable with this. But so I'm supplementing with this, and you see that a lot of guys that had post-finasteride or post-Dutasteride syndrome, by supplementing with DHT and NAD+, or NMN, NR, right, nicotinamide mononucleotide, nicotinamide riboside, to bring those NAD+ levels up and all the downstream, NADP, NADPH, etc. By supplementing with DHT and some sort of NAD supplement, they're able to recover a lot faster. But it might still take some time because it really depends on how depleted and how inefficient they are regarding those two pathways. So I would say that oral finasteride and dutasteride is a real risk, and I would rather do the surgery than take those things orally, because I've just seen too many horror stories. But then again, people who have a good response to finasteride and dutasteride, they keep their hair, they have great libido, and they don't have to contact any of us because they have no issues. Yeah. So basically, by the time they get to us, there's issues, and that kind of skews our perspective. So we only talk to the 1 to 5% that take finasteride. But yeah, it's a significant risk.
There was a survey recently done on like the younger generation, the guys in their 20s, and they said they would rather have a small penis than go bald.
Wow.
I don't know what women think about that. He's got great hair, but a 2-inch penis.
Yeah.
A funny thing too is the RU58841 was developed originally by I'm going to pronounce it well, the Roussel Eucliffe pharmaceutical company in France. They're the ones who originally studied Trenbolone. So they introduced Trenbolone to the market, and then they introduced a chemical to stop your hair loss. Negma then bought the rights and made it into Parabon, but the original company was making it as Trenbolone acetate.
And they put it in a Roches oil because about 50% of the people that take a Roches oil are allergic for it. They get systemic inflammation, which can contribute to hair loss. It's all making sense to me now.
Problem solution.
Yeah. Well, that's how the medical field works, right? We create a problem and then we create a solution to the problem we created. Well, it is what it is. So, Dean, would you have to do anything to kind of maintain the hair of your hair transplant proactively? Now that you're on TRT now, right? So you're not doing any cycling? No future plans either, I guess, or temptations, despite being at one of the Irish bodybuilding shows at the weekend. The itch.
It's quite well. This is funny, right? So, and like I go on about like your bodybuilding ego. At this point now, I'm retired, like a year and a half, October 24. You have people coming up to you, haven't seen you in that length of time, and they're like, "Geez, you've gotten really small," and like. Part of it is sort of bits, you're thinking in your head. But then the other side, you're getting compliments of you look really healthy and young. So it's sort of like, do I want to be jacked and age sort of looking, or do I want to be relatively young and vitality, having a nice healthy appearance? But I think with hair transplants, some of them do fail. Like you're hinting at that people go get transplants and they start taking loads of gear again. And they're sort of like, they're sold a promise that the occipital hair that they harvest from like the side and back of your head is technically supposed to be androgen resistant, that the hair follicle isn't subjective to that androgen signaling for inflammation. But you transplant the hair in that is androgen resistant, it can still fall out from nutrient deficiency, oxidative stress, inflammation, thyroid, blah, blah, blah. So when you're...
It's to interject real quick, it's also the hair that is easier to turn gray.
Correct.
On the side. So in the beginning, you might not notice that. And then at one point, the transplants that you, like in the front and on the side here, they might turn gray with this area, but then you're left with black hair on the top that was not removed by your steroid cycle. So that I've seen in older men where they get patches of gray. We're like, oh, that's from the transplant, you motherfucker. They took that from the side of your and back of your skull, and now it's here. And they got these, and now they basically have to dye their hair all the time to kind of mask that. Which again, dyeing your hair is not the end of the world. I've done it a couple times, make it blonde. But that's something you also got to realize. And again, gray hairs can be circumvented a little bit by a decent copper supplement because it's usually a copper deficiency. So GHK copper kind of helps on two sides then. Yeah.
Like I think when you have the transplant, you're advised topical minoxidil finasteride to maintain your hair post-transplant. But that's to actually maintain the existing hair. So what I mean by that is if you had a transplant and all things considered, you didn't do anything, but over time, the hair on the top of your head starts to thin or age.
I'm imagining how it looks.
So you're going to end up with this transplanted hairline, but here is all sparse and gone. So you're advised to use these things to maintain the quality of the existing hair to keep up with obviously the occipital transplanted hair. I mean, yeah, you're going to have to, looking back in hindsight, again, most people, once they have hair loss, are not delusional, but they've lost sight that the hair has been lost and haven't intervened appropriately. After going through a transplant and then having like the want to maintain your hair, you're going to do things to try and maintain it. So for me personally, topical finasteride and minoxidil, I only apply it maybe 2 or 3 days per week. So I don't do it every single day. The serum half-life of finasteride is about 8 hours. So again, this is where it didn't make sense to me. When people are prescribed finasteride, it has a half-life of 6 to 8 hours in serum and has like an elimination time of about 3 days. If you were taking finasteride every single day, okay, yes, you're keeping up with the elimination half-life of 8 hours, but the drug's active time in your body is probably about 48 to 72 hours. So if you were really on the fence of whether you should take oral finasteride or not, you could extend out the dosing to be more selective to that half-life. So you could do 1 milligram every 3 days or 0.5 milligram every 3 days. And you'll still get some selective inhibition of the enzyme, but it's not going to go to the point where perhaps you might develop post-finasteride syndrome where you've completely shut down the enzyme itself.
But this is only in the context of TRT or being natural, because as soon as you start taking DHT derivatives and Trenbolone and other drugs that are known to cause hair loss, then you need a topical anti-androgen.
Correct.
Because it doesn't matter. 5-alpha reductase enzymes convert testosterone into DHT, nandrolone into nandrolone, which is benign. And that's about it. Right? Well, maybe equipoise to dihydroboldenone, but at 1.7%.
Usually EQ usually 5 beta reduces though, right, Dean?
Right,
EQ 5 alpha reduces in humans, in cattle, horses. So it's made... DHP was more discovered in the process of synthesizing Primobolan than it was innately in humans.
Okay.
That was the whole thing with the 5-alpha reductase activity of Dianabol.
Yeah.
Where Dianabol will only have about a 1 to 3% conversion through 5-alpha reductase. So yeah, I think once you start adding in excessive androgens, you are opening up a Pandora's box of thyroid dysfunction, estrogen, nutrient deficiencies that I think for what it's worth, if hair is something you want to maintain into like your 40s, 50s, and you have genetic predisposition to balding, like I said, it tends to run maternally because your androgen receptor is genetically transferred from your mother to you. So you just look at your maternal hairline and see what happens with hair on that side. Do the things that are necessary to maintain their hair if it's without obviously, I guess, throwing everything in the kitchen sink at it. Add one thing at a time. Finasteride is going to help with DHT blocking, but it's not going to help with blood flow and low estrogen.
No.
Minoxidil is going to help with low blood flow and potentially a consequence of low estrogen, but it's not going to block DHT. So that's why we tend to combine the two of them together. But again, with Minoxidil,
Ketoconazole is not as good of an androgen receptor blocker as 5R or RU 54.
Yeah, not nearly.
Zip code. RU zip code. So I think the low-hanging fruit and the least invasive is probably Minoxidil and RU if you're on cycle. And if you're not on cycle on TRT only, then maybe a topical finasteride would be more suitable.
Yeah. And I'm assuming most people know this, but if they're using nandrolone, they should not use finasteride or dutasteride.
Yeah.
It'll make it worse.
Yeah. Well, it makes your nandrolone more potent.
Yeah. Then your hair falls out.
I'm running 200 milligrams of nandrolone because it's so expensive and a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. I wonder why we don't have an erection. Again, something has got to go up. It's either your hair or your boner. Yeah, you can't have both. And otherwise, guys, I can highly recommend the Philips One blade. Just make sure you get the legitimate blades, not the ones from China, because those are not as sharp. So then you really have to do like millimeter by millimeter. But if you get the legit ones, then it's just a matter of 10 minutes and it's all gone. You could do the whole body in 30 minutes and the hair about 10 minutes because it's kind of thick. And we all got married while we were bald, so it's not the end of the world. But if you're young and your looks maxer, then follow this advice, so you can stay somewhat attractive with a full head of hair. There's a market for everything, though. So
there is.
It's not the end of the world, guys. And again, don't sacrifice your libido for hair loss, because you'd rather spend that money on a hair transplant than a consultation with us.
Well, I was going to say, according to Kurt, the survey, people would rather have hair than a big dick. So
it's pretty stupid.
I don't know. I don't see how you're going to make love to your wife with a full set of hair.
I don't think women care.
No.
And honestly, they would probably take money over either of them.
How do I got to ask around here? I don't think, maybe it's only in the Western world. Yeah, it needs to be 6 inches, 6 feet tall, 6 salary, and a full head of hair. 6 inches of hair on his head. Anything else you would like to contribute to the hair loss talk and things people need to consider? Because I'm clearly not the demographic, but I'm sure a lot of people in the audience would like to know more.
I didn't have much more.
No, I think that's really, like, in terms of like assessing nutrient deficiency, gut health, like all the basics, oxidative stress. You have 2 very well understood medications that you can utilize, but beyond that, I don't think there's anything like magic or whatever. I think sometimes it's leverage that you can do, like testosterone, Tren, Anavar as relatively hair safe if you use finasteride, which I think has some merit behind it. But I think if you look overall in terms of like how androgenic those 2 compounds are going to be on top of, say, TRT, you are probably going to start messing with a bit of hair growth. And I think that was a question that was on my mind last year when I done that little experiment for a few weeks before life got in the way with my dad and everything.
Yeah. So while we're on the topic, why don't we classify these kinds of interventions for hair loss prevention into S to F tier? I'm the wrong guy to ask, so I'm just going to ask you guys. We'll start classifying them and then put it in a nice schematic on the screen for the audience to enjoy. Let's start with topical minoxidil. Is that S, A, B, C, D, E, F tier regarding the hair loss recovery protocol or prevention of hair loss?
Probably yes.
Yeah, I think S. I think we're well established in it having effect to regrow hair.
What about oral minoxidil? Because some guys prefer oral minoxidil.
Blood pressure, probably, I'd probably say B. But if the person had high blood pressure, minoxidil orally could be something that they could consider, because after all, that's what it was designed for, was blood pressure. And then they started noticing women were growing beards.
There's a market for that too. Usually it's in the circus. The bearded lady. And while we're on the topic of shampoos, what about topical ketoconazole? Because we haven't really discussed this as a topical anti-androgen. B?
Yeah, I think B. So fungal infections can irritate the scalp. So you have mesalazia is the fungus that can grow on your skin that can mimic the inflammation of acne. So sometimes acne that's caused with steroid use can be fungal based. So yeah, ketoconazole once per week is generally what's recommended with I think it's the 2% is the prescription form.
Yeah, 2 to 5.
You're supposed to leave it in your scalp for up to 5 minutes and then rinse it away. I think B. I don't think it's when you look at some of the data on it, has mild 5-alpha reductase and inhibition effects topically, but it's not on par to something like finasteride or dutasteride.
No,
but still useful as a scalp conditioner if we view that scalp irritation. And we haven't even touched on it briefly. Histamine. People have itchy scalps and are doing this all the time, itching their head.
Right. Yeah.
Some people take cetirizine topically or orally as an antihistamine for lowering that inflammatory cascade effect. But again, that high histamine is a reflection of gut health and internal, nutritional health. So, B, I think.
B. Okay. What about oral ketoconazole?
Oh, very toxic to the liver. So
no. D, F.
D or F. I think if you're prescribed that, there's a very good reason that you have a very resistant fungus in your GI. It has to be addressed, but they tend to not.
So you'd
like
be surprised
prescribing
how many guys run oral ketoconazole
Wow.
I couldn't get the shampoo, so I.
It's very, very liver toxic, and
and again, the sex hormone cascade is completely inhibited systemically, so I feel horrible from that. Okay, topical finasteride. Or Dean, Kurt, you want to interject a little bit?
No, I was just going to say, if it's super liver toxic, you'd probably use it with halotestin in women and children, right?
And Anabolic is the best, don't forget that.
Gene, your nose is really growing.
Yeah, your nose, Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
Yeah. You gotta put, you put Estrogen in there?
There's a nice picture on my Instagram from last summer of me 10 years ago to me with Morgan. It just come up when I was scrolling through my Instagram profile to get a post for someone, and I swear, like, just 10 years between those pictures and there's not a single change in my nose. So go figure.
Robert De Niro just put a thing on Instagram of his from
his
a
ears.
raging bull to now, and you can see his face just because your face changes with the age.
Yeah, it's part of it.
But probably not in 10 years.
My nose is huge now that I started Serostim.
Yeah.
It's better to smell you with, my dear. Topical finasteride.
S.
Yeah, I was going to say S. I think
Used correctly.
When it's used correctly, it can be. And then I guess with oral finasteride on the reverse, I'd A or B, or it could even be E, depending on how people respond to it. But A or B, I think I'd always prefer topical 5-alpha
I would
reductase
put
inhibitors.
it in D then, because oral finasteride and dutasteride does work, but there's a significant risk.
Yeah, not worth the risk.
Now, in the hair loss prevention community, it seems that dutasteride is a little bit more favored than finasteride, and part of that is due to the half-life, or maybe it's just a little bit better efficacious compared to finasteride on a milligram for milligram basis. But you guys haven't tried that yet, right?
I have not.
No. Would you be willing to try? All right, let's revisit this in a couple months.
Yeah.
Where would you say is the topical dutasteride now? Is it on par with finasteride?
A, S, it's hard to say. I've not used it.
Yeah.
I think if, like, what more is it going to do beyond what finasteride can do? If I think, in terms of selectivity of, I think it's type 2 5-alpha reductase. Yes, the research shows that it's a little more favorable towards blocking the enzyme that affects hair follicles. But with finasteride topically, in terms of what can pass into systemic circulation versus dutasteride on sort of a milligram per milligram basis, I think finasteride has a lower propensity. So I don't know. They're probably both as equal. It just depends on what the clinic prefers.
I'll group them together. Topical GHK.
B.
B. Yeah, I think. Yeah. I think topical GHK, topical caffeine, even topical melatonin. Some people apply topical melatonin as an antioxidant for the hair follicle. Yeah, I'd say B. Not a sure shot of regrowing your hair, but every little percent helps if everything else is aligned.
And what about injectable GHK?
I've not used it. Not for
is
that.
it better than topical, or is
Probably
topical
not for hair?
I think in terms of, like, if we're looking at specifically improving copper locally in the hair follicle or within the scalp, topical would probably be better than systemic. I guess even
injectable on C then.
The amount of copper, from what I remember, a 2 milligram dose of GHK-Cu.
17% based on molecular weight. I did the research already. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to get 10 milligrams of copper on a high dose GHK copper.
Yeah, it's what is that roughly? It's about 150 micrograms from what I remember for 2 milligram. Like, it's nothing if you look at like your RDA of copper.
No, it doesn't come close.
People
Even with
are afraid.
Yeah. I did that research already when I researched. So I think it's 17% based on the molecular weight, and you would not reach the upper limit of the tolerable dose by injecting 5 milligrams.
as an aside, I remember reading that upper tolerable limit of 10 milligrams of copper was a fabricated number from what was the minimal amount of copper that had to be given to prisoners in the US in prisons. And so they worked out that roughly most people need about 1 to 2 milligrams of copper per day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then they just multiplied it by 5, and that was the upper tolerable limit.
America.
So I think if you do a lot of reading,
Kurt is shaking his head the most.
if you do a lot of reading into copper toxicity, you need a lot of copper. You need a lot of copper to cause copper toxicity. That's not advice to go out and megadose copper, but some people are afraid of taking more copper than necessary. Copper and zinc need to be balanced.
Like the push zinc out of the way.
It's about 10-1. So if you are megadosing zinc with all the supplements you take, or trying to improve your androgen receptor functionality and whatever else,
those zinc
you need
fingers,
to have,
bro.
for every 10 milligrams of zinc, you need 1 milligram of copper. So, a 30 milligram dose of zinc needs 3 milligrams of copper. And that can be easily missed when someone's setting up their nutrition.
Yeah. No, I know. So inject some GHK or take it topically to prevent hair loss, and you'll be good. You have nice skin. Looks maxing skin.
Looks maxing.
It's S tier for the looks maxers. It's a lot of drama in that space. So I've been watching all the reaction videos. And that brings us to micronutrients just as a whole. Because, we could classify zinc, keratin, and vitamin A and blah, 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 blah. But I think micronutrients as a whole, I would say, is A or S tier.
Yeah, I'd agree. A.
Yeah.
100%.
Micronutrient sufficiency. And that we have the UV or near UV lights.
The infrared.
The red stuff?
Infrared.
The infrared, sorry.
I
don't know. B.
I guess, like near infrared energy and infrared energy, the research is still out there in terms of like what they call photobiomodulation. But I don't think it's amazing. But in saying that, I've got
You got one, right? Yeah, so Derek is, you got a name for like hair loss prevention, right? And he got one of those helmets. It's like $2,000. Jesus. You don't turn it on too long. You're going to turn into Superman. He's got one of those helmets that he put on, and he tried. Yeah, so one of those, but he paid like $2,000 for it, and he said it didn't really do anything.
Jesus.
You look like what is it? The doctor from Back to the Future 2 or Back to the Future 1.
Current body.
You're like a stormtrooper.
Yeah, stormtrooper.
The only good thing about that is it has Bluetooth speakers in it, so they're little headphones. They're not, those earmuffs are headphones, so you can actually, and it's set for a 10-minute timer, so you just put it on and listen to some music, whatever.
Playing video games.
Do I suggest that people go out and spend, like, I think this was £500? Maybe, it really depends.
The £500 is burning a hole in your wallet.
It depends if
some
it's
people
something
died. Some people it does.
In terms of like the hierarchy of fixing your nutrition and all the shit going on your gut. Do more of that rather than spend £500 on an infrared helmet. But in saying that, does that help? Research suggests that you're providing a local source of electrons to the mitochondria, which dictate the overall health and oxidative stress, blah, blah. So, the stuff is there. What I rate as
antioxidant management and upregulating mitochondrial function, would that not be better? In the short term, it would be cheaper, but maybe in the long term, you spend more money on drugs.
Yeah, I mean, like, would I put that helmet or stuff like that as S tier? I'd say evidence-based wise, it's probably like A- or a B.
Oh, okay.
There is I wouldn't put it down there. I wouldn't put it down at C or D. That's bunk.
Okay.
But again, I've got another one, which is this.
So you have been shopping a bit.
Well, this is from ages ago. People probably wonder why my hair has been so good, but it's basically, this was a UK company. You put this inside a hat. It just sits on top of your head. People probably remember I forgot a hat and absolutely no fucks given. I was on a train to the airport in England and I just put this on my head when I had my bald head and had the red light shining on my head. The amount of people looking at me on the train. But needs must. But like something like that again, that was, there was a Black Friday sale. I forget now the UK company, but it was like £90. Normally it's like £250.
Okay.
What I again, like the helmet, for what it's worth, yeah, maybe it has some use, but there's a lot of other things that you can do before you rush out to the helmet.
And then microneedling?
I think in terms of the evidence base of what can support like post-transplant and even reactivating hair follicles and improving the treatment of minoxidil finasteride, I think microneedling is like either S or A. Yeah.
Okay.
When you look at what it does in terms of improving absorption of minoxidil finasteride, and there is a controlled trial of microneedling plus minoxidil, microneedling without minoxidil, and then minoxidil by itself. The combination therapy saw an improvement in local hair density with the combined minoxidil plus microneedling. So I think it's better when it's combined with a hair loss strategy. So I think from what I used to do before the transplant, all that, I used to microneedle, shower, apply ketoconazole shampoo, leave it in my hair, rinse it out, then put a topical finasteride, minoxidil, and then you have essential oils like peppermint and rosemary. You'll find these in a lot of these hair loss products as well that are shown to stimulate hair follicles. They're quite useful, again, from a nutrient perspective. I'd leave that in my hair overnight, and then the next day just rinse out my hair, and now it's going to destroy your pillows. Pillowcases.
Say. Yeah. So,
but leaving it in.
It's lavender and what else?
Peppermint and rosemary are the two.
Okay, peppermint and rosemary, and that would be topical spices.
So you can buy pure essential oils. Like if you look at
essential oils, okay.
If you look at Derek has the intelligent conditioner that has peppermint and has rosemary inside the conditioner with simethicone, which is really good for giving your hair that nice like texture and sort of helping condition the root of the hair. It adds like a plasticky base to your hair to make your hair stronger. They're useful things. Again, essential oils, there's research there with them, and that's why you'll find them in a lot of these topicals. But I used to do that sequence of microneedle or derma rolling, rinse it out, because obviously with the blood and everything that's on your head, putting ketoconazole, rinsing that out, and then putting the topical finasteride and minoxidil. Now, there is a caveat that you shouldn't really do that, because the wound you've created, like you said at the start, will improve systemic absorption. For some people, that can be too much of the drug going into circulation. So you have to be mindful of why you're doing it. But I used to do that twice a week rather than every single day. And again, that brought back good density to my hair. But again, the place that was lost needed the transplant.
Okay. And then lastly, unless I'm forgetting something, that's a topical RU58841.
A? S?
Yeah, I think without there being any human clinical studies, you've got no there's human evidence to suggest so, but there's that much anecdotal evidence at this point. I'd agree. A. Again, it acts as an anti-androgen. We do have other anti-androgens. We do have other anti-androgen medications that were used historically to potentially offset this, like spironolactone is one potential one that women are given. I think in terms of what we've seen anecdotally, it's A from my perspective.
Okay. Missing anything here that we can classify, or this is pretty much it?
That's probably it. That makes any sense.
I mean, you've got all these new ones like, what's it called? Let me quickly look at my history. You've got PP405, and there's one other one that I was reading recently. Again, sooner
it's
or
all
later.
new, so you can't really find too much scientific evidence or anecdotal experience on it. And then I did read on one of them. I can't remember if that one that you called or another topical anti-androgen, that people compared it to RU, and they said that RU worked better. So you read those Reddit reports. Again, no before and after pictures, no before and after blood work. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, it might be a little bit too new. And with this list of topical minoxidil, topical finasteride, microneedling, topical essential oils, and then perhaps micronutrients, infrared, and topical RU, I think most people can get the job done. And then there's always a transplant. So transplant is S tier, right?
Yeah.
if you've got a good surgeon, because there have been some dodgy ones that I've seen. And just as an aside, crown transplants have a high failure rate because with how they do a crown transplant, they tend to do DHI, so direct hair implantation, where they put a hair into an existing follicle to give density. If that transplanted hair doesn't root properly, it will kill the existing follicle. So not only do you lose the sort of donor hair, but you lose the existing hair as well. So crown transplants, when I went, they said to me, okay, yes, your crown is thinning a little bit, but minoxidil as a medication will improve blood flow to your scalp and help with that thickness again. They said, do you need DHI in your crown? Absolutely not. But for the guys who do have a thinning crown and a transplant is like the last resort, it can make things worse. So it can either make or break whether you're going to have to shave your head or be successful afterwards. So yeah, there's pros and cons. Like Kurt said, a transplant, there's risks. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah. Is there, a bit of process afterwards, having to like manage your head for 10 days, not to get hit, not to scratch your head, not to bump your head and all this sort of stuff. Not to sweat. You can't train for 4 weeks, can't raise your blood pressure. There's all those
water
things.
retention in your...
Well, I was lucky.
Balloon face.
I had none of that. So I think that's skill of your surgeon and how much... Because they basically inject adrenaline into your scalp to inflate your hair follicles so that you can see them more clearly for the transplant. Does it come without risk? No, but am I really happy I went and done one? Yes, in terms of what's done there. Yeah, 100%.
No, it looks great now.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's close that off. We got about an hour left, so let's do one more topic. I'm in favor for gyno because I did gyno surgery, so we can throw that into the anecdotal evidence.
And I did as well.
Okay.
I had prepubescent gyno that had to be removed. So we've got two very probably similar experiences.
Yeah. So I developed my gynecomastia after I broke my leg in a motorcycle accident at the age of 23. Not during the accident, but in the recovery process, when I started going back to the gym again, through some sort of weird hormonal imbalance. And I have no idea what kind of hormonal imbalance it was, because in Holland, you could do blood work out of pocket or out of the healthcare system once per year. And then the rest would be out of pocket. And most of the time, they would just deny you. So I would do blood work once per year. So I didn't do it around that time. Basically, I went back to the gym. And when I started training legs again, I developed a gyno. How or why, I have no idea. I felt it one day. I'm like, what the fuck is that? I was sensitive. You do leg press, you get your knees to your chest, right? You're like, oh, that kind of hurts. And then I checked it and I had gyno on one side. And so I did my ultrasound at the doctor, and the doctor was like, are you taking steroids? It's like, no, man, I can't even train hard. I barely lift heavy weights right now because I'm recovering from this leg surgery. So that's how it happened to me. Then obviously when I took testosterone and nandrolone together, it got worse. in the years. And then in anticipation of my gyno surgery last year in January, I let my estrogen run rampant. And I grew my gyno to impressive proportions. The doctor was like, whoa, this is a lot of tissue. So that was the gyno stack for me was test, nandrolone, and what was it? Ment. I did it at the same time. And then, a boatload of food and no aromatase inhibitor. And that went pretty well. Yeah, I did liposuction and gynecomastia surgery at the same time. But before that, I tried everything to take it under control. And the aromatase inhibitors, the Raloxifene, et cetera, but we'll address that. Dean, what's your story? And Kurt, did you have any gyno?
No.
All right.
I had like 2 flare-ups, but I got rid of them right away. So Anadrol, once, it literally woke me up in the morning. I turned over and I was like, what the hell? And then I took letrozole and it went away. And then D-ball, Deca, and Tess with no AI years ago.
Yeah.
That same kind of thing. I could feel my estrogen going real high though, before it happened. Same thing.
Yeah.
I took, I think that time I used a Arimidex, and then I never used D-ball again.
And so no SERMs, no Novadex?
No, I don't. And on the TRT, I don't need an AI. I mean, I'm not opposed. I've used AIs in various cycles for a decade, if needed, depending on what I was running.
And you say reasonably lean, right? So you don't strike me as a guy that has
I'm not
a high estradiol.
No, I'm very sensitive to estrogen, though. If mine gets in the 50s or 60s, I definitely notice it.
Okay.
So I keep it, I like mine 29 to 35.
Okay.
Most guys I find 35 seems to be the sweet spot for most guys. They feel the best.
Okay. Yeah, I feel the best. Okay. Dean, sorry. Dean, what's your story?
I was 11 and I noticed that both nipples were puffy.
Fuck.
Bring it up to my mother, and my mother's like, okay, we'll go to the GP. GP looks and just goes, oh yeah, that's just puberty and hormone imbalance. And that was sort of wrote off. And obviously my family have no real medical background or nothing. So like then you're at high school and all of a sudden guys are like, you've got puffy nipples. And you're like, oh shit. So I do. And so you go back to the GP at 14, 15 about puffy nipples. Oh yeah, that's just puberty. That's a hormone imbalance, and you're sent on your way. Yeah. And it was only when I competed, I went to the European Championships, and they had an elimination round. There was 28 of us in the class for classic bodybuilding at the IFBB Europeans, and the head judge said, in the elimination round tomorrow, anyone with gyno, physical defects, acne, judging will just eliminate you. Doesn't matter why. You'll get eliminated. The top 15 would go through to judging, and the other, say, 13 of us were being eliminated. So I tried to explain to him about having, like, this was even gear at this point. Like I said to him, I've had this from puberty. He's like, doesn't matter if you've got gyno, if we can visibly see it on stage. You can do something. You've got puffy nipples like that. You can, like, when you rub them and whatever else, they shrink because the local stimulus, you'd shrink the puffiness, but you can still see... Yeah. You can still see the outline around the areola of where the inflammation or the tissue is. So when I got eliminated at the Europeans, pretty much within 4 weeks of coming home, I was like, right, if I want to be a good bodybuilder internationally or even, locally or whatever, it's time to like get this addressed. So I booked in with a really good surgeon, done my research, Dr. Clark in Poland, like one of the best. If you look her up online, so many positive reviews, only treats one person at a time, you stay in her clinic overnight, blah blah. But when she done my ultrasound, same story as you, Steve, she was like, your left side is huge. And I was like, what? She's like, your left side has a huge growth. And she's like, asked me, did you do steroids and this, that, and the other? I was like, I said, being honest, probably the last 6 months with turning, enhanced. I said, that's there since I was 11. And she said, my God, why can't, okay, it's a little more nuanced because the GP can't prescribe something to an 11-year-old. But, what we know, if you see like prepubescent gyno develop in a child or in a young adult, you have to start addressing things like the high aromatization, xenoestrogens, body fat, quality of nutrition, liver metabolism, gut health. There's so many things that play into it rather than just going, oh yeah, that's puberty. And then the poor child starts developing man boobs.
They don't care, man, in healthcare.
Yep.
They don't care.
There's so many, and not being cruel, but when you look around today's society, there's so many men with gyno from their lifestyle environment.
Just get them later during the surgery. When they have to spend out of pocket. It's not a cosmetic surgery. So that's a more fucked up thing. Women can get breast reductions, but men cannot get gyno surgery under the same policy.
So there's three stages of gyno that are considered normal, right? So post-birth for men and women. Women can get gyno right after birth. Mm-hmm. Then you have puberty, which is what you're talking about. And then you have typically outside of the steroid community, men over 60, right? When that's normal when the hormones start to go down. But now we're seeing it, like you said, at teenagers, not related to puberty. And then 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, just people are just fat and eating garbage.
Yeah. I mean, when we look at, this is the thing about gyno, and this is why it's really important. Gyno has, like you said there as well, 3 stages. You have what's called a flaccid state, which is basically when it is spongy. So when your gyno feels like there's like a springiness to it, you're in this sort of ductal phase where you're developing ducts and blood vessels to that tissue. Then you have like the intermediate phase between some of it is starting to solidify and some of it is still flaccid. And then you go into your sort of florid or your fibrous state where the tissue, basically the ductal formations move away and the tissue's now solidified. It's a massive fibrous cells. Yeah. Mm-hmm. One of the easiest ways to, and again, I learned this when I went for the surgery, is if you just grab your nipple like this here, you're going to feel maybe something, but you're not actually going to feel the actual gland. In order to open up the gland, you actually put your hand behind your head and then grab, and literally grab, not pinch, like grab in behind your,
you gotta feel
your nipple. Yeah. And you can feel then the actual, what's growing around the nipple gland itself. If you're going for surgery, depending on the surgeon, this is where, again, some guys get surgery and gyno comes back. You either have full gland excision where the surgeon knows how to remove the gland properly and all the tissue with it, or you'll get a surgeon who is just more so interested in the cosmetic perspective, taking some of the tissue away, taking some of the inflammation away, but they're not confident to take the nipple gland out. Mm-hmm. Because one of the biggest risks of gyno surgery with full gland excision is your nipple can die. Like if the areola loses blood supply. I laughed when Dr. Clark was going through this with me. She said to me, if your nipple falls off, you can get a nipple tattoo. And I just started laughing. I was like,
I won't be able to pierce that tattoo, damn it.
The good surgeons will be able to do like what's called a half moon excision. So they'll create a little half moon cut at the bottom of your nipple and then go in from the side. So drain it from the side of your pec and then take out the tissue through the actual half moon excision.
Yeah. That's what they did with me, plus liposuction to kind of have everything cave back inwards. Because my gyno was pretty big on one side. I've seen the pictures. I can't overlay it because then YouTube will demonetize the video. But trust me when I said it looked like a horror show when by the time I was done and looked at the table. It's like a little birth, like a little stillborn there on the table. So I opted for a little bit of liposuction. And the reason why you never saw my gyno is because I always had a little bit of fat on my lower chest. It was just almost impossible to go away. I had shredded glutes and my lower back would be completely in before that fat on my lower chest was gone. Now, I did the easy way because after so many diets, it's like, fuck it. If I can't get rid of it, we'll do the surgery route while I'm removing the gyno. And now it looks really good. Now when I do a front lat spread, for example, you can see all the separation on my lower chest for the first time in my life. But before, it was just smooth.
Whereas I had the reverse to you, I had liposculpture where she actually took some fat and pushed it in where the nipple gland was. When you actually hit a side chest, your nipples area doesn't cave in on itself. You actually have tissue there to keep the volume.
The skin folds. Yeah.
So I think, like what you said, when you're in that spongy phase, that florid or spongy, that's when you need to reduce estrogen, either in terms of blocking the receptor with a serum or reducing total estradiol, whether that's with an aromatase inhibitor, reducing xenoestrogen load, improving gut health and excretion, all these other things outside of it. That is when you can. Hops and alcohol definitely playing into gyno formation. And again, that's where you see a lot of college students.
Beer and finasteride, that's probably like a recipe for gyno.
Yeah. Dean, you can have IGF stimulated gyno as well on its own outside of estrogen.
Oh, really?
And you can also have, there's, and I actually have one client who suffers from that. So like growth hormone is not an option. It's rare, but you use growth hormone in gyno forms.
Right.
And like
could that be the growth hormone interacting with? Could that be the growth hormone interacting with the prolactin receptor?
His prolactin's not elevated. It's wild. So again, but it also could be an estrogenic thing as well, like we've talked about with the Dutch test, where you don't see the actual estrogen response; you only see what's in the blood, right? So the actual elevation in the cell might be super high, but there is a link with IGF. There's research to show that IGF can do it independently.
That's what I suspect happened in my case, because I had that weird stubborn fat, right? And I always suspected that there was a lot of aromatase enzyme expression going on locally. My serum estradiol would be in range, but then I would still have a little bit of a flare up. And you know what's weird? My estrogen is now lower after the surgery.
Yeah,
in serum,
you have less enzyme.
Yeah, because I just cut it out.
Remove the fat cells, because it's the fat cells that produce aromatase. You know, in hindsight, genetically, CYP19A1 is high. Activity is high for me genetically, and that comes from my mother as well. So your CYP19 1A enzyme and your androgen receptor come from your mother. So if you are a shit bodybuilder, you can blame your mother.
Shit mitochondria, shit hair, shit cytochrome 1991.
In terms of like the reversal of gyno, all these letrozole protocols, if it's formed and it's fibrous, you're just creating more detriment to your health. You're not, if it's spongy and you're intervening at the point where it hasn't solidified, then do whatever you can to stop it forming into fibrous tissue to reverse the possibility of ending up with man boobs. But surgery, again, it's one of those things that, like hair transplant, you can have a really bad gyno surgeon and you end up with hematomas. One of the things post-surgery for me was buying an actual proper compression vest. So yes, you get a compression vest, but Macom, I think, is the brand. This is like 2013 was when I had my surgery. Macom is a brand, whether they're around or not anymore now, but you literally walk around for 4 weeks like someone is hugging you to death.
Yeah,
but
that's what I had. I
that compression, the compression then keeps you like sorted, I guess, to the point where when you take off the vest, you're going to have a lot of tissue lost because you can't train. You're not allowed to put your hand over your head for at least 3 weeks. And you physically can't, but you're not allowed to stretch that area. But again, like the hair transplant, the aesthetic side of it, so the puffy nipples and that, it was well worth doing the gyno surgery from something that was there from puberty. But also just shows how backwards sometimes medical thinking is of like, it's just a hormone imbalance, it's puberty, go away.
I know a lot of guys who got hormonal or puberty gyno when they were like 15, 16 going through puberty. And then they later had to get it removed. And then again, in Holland, all the people that I knew from there, they all have their healthcare, right? And then the healthcare doesn't cover it. So, but when you're 21, you probably don't have like 3 to 5K laying around to spend on gyno surgery. So a lot of these guys walk around with it until they get their first real paycheck, and then they do it out of pocket. I waited until I was fucking 40 years old, But the good thing about my gyno is because I had that stubborn fat on my lower chest, you barely saw it until I got really lean. And then still it was kind of masked from the lower chest fat. So I never really paid it no mind. But then when I decided to do one surgery, I was like, I'll do all the surgeries at the same time. So I only get downtime for 4 to 6 weeks. instead of 4 to 6 weeks, multiple times for the LASIK eye surgery and the gyno surgery and the liposuction and the orthopedic plate removal and blah, 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 blah. And I just did it all at the same time. And it also saved me multiple, peptide protocols, luckily. So to prevent it, I think there's 3-4 pathways we could look into, right? We have the estrogen pathway to grow the gyno. We have the prolactin pathway, which is usually a result of estrogen or severe dopamine downregulation.
Or thyroid or
thyroid.
Yeah, thyroid, right? Thyroid, and then weeds or exogenous drugs that can raise prolactin. So we have prolactin, estrogen, growth hormone interacting with the prolactin receptor or causing growth.
Yep.
When estrogen is high or prolactin is elevated. So growth hormone by itself is very rare that it interacts with the prolactin receptor.
The only possibilities, it's far-fetched, but melatonin supplementation, if big enough, can raise prolactin on its own.
Yes.
And growth hormone itself will cause melatonin release. So that, so you could, in a far-fetched way, see some level of prolactin, but prolactin doesn't go up in men outside of pituitary adenemas, thyroid function down, or estrogen up. So like when guys take nandrolone and their dick breaks, it's not because of prolactin, right? If prolactin's elevated, it's a byproduct of the estrogen, right? Or the combination of high estrogen could be a reduction of the thyroid function, perhaps, but it's not going to be on its own.
And then you produce less dopamine, and you feel less motivated, and also less libido, and then the gyno comes as a result of that, of leaving it unmanaged, basically. And then, the progestogenic signaling. It could be nandrolone, could be trenbolone, could be ment, or could be high progesterone. But it's very unlikely for men to have high progesterone unless they're megadosing ketoconazole and minoxidil orally, because progesterone metabolism is also affected by those drugs. So you see that. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, progesterone is an anti-inflammatory hormone generally in males. So when it's raised above 0.4, I think nanomole per litre is the UK measurement.
Yeah.
Once it's above 0.4, it's pretty much signs of metabolic inflammation, or whether there's an insufficiency in its clearance. But it tends to give you an insight into how well you're handling internal inflammation.
Yeah, so there's 1 or 2 enzymes that metabolize progesterone, and those can be inhibited by the topical or oral ketoconazole and minoxidil. Mm-hmm. So that's also something you have to pay attention to. Now, progesterone in serum being elevated is unlikely to really cause gyno. Well, I've never talked to anybody with elevated progesterone that it's that gyno was a side effect of that. But with the progestogenic 19-nors, the nandrolone, the trenbolone, the ment, check drops, perhaps, and then the estrogen receptor activation of anadrol, potentially. Again, I never found scientific evidence to support it, but, there's some talk of it based on the chemical structure. I think, if you want to prevent gyno, nandrolone, trenbolone, trestolone, anadrol, dianabol, those deserve a little bit of respect and frequent blood work, and having aromatase inhibitors and selective estrogen receptor modulators on standby, just in case. And for the love of God, see how you respond to those compounds first before you add in a growth hormone or a growth hormone secretagogue or an IGF-1 LR3 or DES or Increlex, because those can exacerbate the formation. Mm-hmm. So I think that's basically STR prevention. And then the real prevention is, well, if it's in the early puffy stage, you can use a selective estrogen receptor blocker, modulator like Nolvadex or Raloxifene. I feel Raloxifene is more potent. Again, if you're in the early stage, and as soon as there's a micron of actual fibrous tissue, that's surgery. That's just surgery. It's the end of the story. But if it's early, if you catch it early on, so for other guys that are a little bit higher body fat, they start TRT or an actual steroid cycle, they still go to bodybuilding or steroid.com and they reach the cycle logs and they're like 500 tests, the animal kickstart. You'd be surprised. Fund's really great website. Fund's really good forum on steroid.com. And they talk about 500 tests.
Is it still an active forum?
I had a consultation recently with a guy who started. I'm like, well, How did you find me? And why did you find me before you started?
Steroid.com.
Yeah, steroid.com. I did the 500 test and the Anabolic kickstart. Anyway, so you got Gyno. So if it's early enough, if it's just watery and puffy, then I think 60 to 120 milligrams Raloxifene is S tier to prevent it from growing. But if you run Raloxifene for a longer period of time and not do blood work and start managing your estrogen, then you're dumb as fuck.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
you can start it until
high estrogen outside of just Gyno.
Yeah, but so that's the problem with a lot of these guys. That they, I'm preventing it with Raloxifene, and then they're risking blood clots.
They're not preventing anything.
Yeah.
And then the other side is just because you're taking something that aromatizes instantly, it's an aromatase inhibitor with the cycle rather than serum estradiol when it's really high, reflective of like that testosterone to estrogen ratio in serum. If it's above 200 to 1, even if the two numbers are red, your testosterone's out of range naturally and your estrogen's out of range naturally. If they're balanced, that ratio is still in favor of more being androgenic, like higher testosterone to estrogen in serum. Okay, within the cell, like we've covered, you can still have high estrogen occurring, but that testosterone to estrogen ratio in serum can be useful to predict, do you need to manage that estrogen number? If that ratio is below 200 to 1, maybe you are making too much estrogen. But again, you have to monitor side effects. High estrogen is water retention, like
blood pressure,
intracellular water retention. So and that affects your blood pressure. And obviously you're looking at gynecomastia, low mood, shifts in neurotransmitters, etc.
Acne.
The acne,
colon cancer, testicular cancer, breast cancer.
I woke up one day, my gyno was grown and my prostate, and now
but like
one
that's
day
it.
to the next.
You use the AI if it is needed. Like so again, correlation. You wake up, you have puffy nipples. You use Raloxifene to control the blocking of the receptor at the nipple. You go get blood work done. You verify your estrogen and serum value. Even if it's normal and you have symptoms, what do you believe? The number that's in your serum or the fact that you've got tits growing?
Yeah.
You have to go by the number in serum is not telling you the full picture.
Right.
But
because you can get localized aromatization and again, maybe you're just very sensitive in that area.
Yeah.
But then you have to realize, I was going to say, do you use the aromatase inhibitor? If that number is green, let's say, or it's in range, you probably might need to use a very selective dose of, say, aromacin. And like we've covered it before, 25 milligrams of aromacin in a natural male lowers estradiol synthesis by about 65%. And with a terminal half-life of around 40 to 48 hours, you're looking at about 3 to 4 days of inhibition. Does that mean you need to use 25 milligrams, every single day? Absolutely not, because you're just going to plummet the enzymes activity into the ground. If you took 25 milligrams every 4 days and that reduces activity by 65%, you're still keeping 35% active to keep your estrogen up in range. That might even be too much for you. So again, it's all reflective.
You might have to take 6.25 milligrams 3 times a week just to get it down enough to not get any side effects, right? And then that brings us to Pfizer aromacin being almost impossible to cut into quarters, but there's underground lab available. Or you use one of those razors. I did it for many times. You have the little tiny capsules, and then you slice them in 4. So basically, you have symptoms, you take the Raloxifene or the Tamoxifene, you go in for blood work, and then you manage your estradiol. And when the puffiness is gone, you take the serum out. And it could be after 2 weeks already. And that's very low risk of, long-term IGF-1 downregulation, liver stress, or blood clots being formed. But again, there's some guys that run, I like test Anadrol, and I'm going to run Tamoxifene preventatively. I'd rather take an AI.
I think, I can't remember exactly, but the formation of fibrous tissue can either be very rapid or it can be very slow. So there's not even like a guideline of, you can go around with puffy nipples for the next, say, 4 months before the gyno is going to grow.
Oh, if you notice it, when I noticed it, I went to the doctor right away. I had an appointment 3 days later. It was the fastest. Yeah. Again, healthcare. Oh yeah, we have an appointment for you next week. Bitch, I could be having full-blown gyno and cancer by that time, you know. So again, if you start taking hormonization into your own hands, have the Raloxifene and the Aromacin on standby just in case, especially when you get started. Because luckily, I could get the Tamoxifene before I went in for the doctor, but I decided not to because I was drug-free at that time when my gyno developed. But I had Tamoxifene on standby on my first cycle, just in case. I do feel that preventative measures, again, besides using the Trenbolone, Nandrolone, Tristelone, etc., with respect and having an aromatase inhibitor and frequent blood work in place, I do feel that there's a preventative effect of Masteron, Primobolan, and perhaps Dutasteride enanthate, if you can get your hands on it, to, again, inhibit estrogen-mediated gene transcription, have some anti-estrogenic effects, and utilize this overall known effect of at least Masteron and Primobolan as an anti-breast cancer medication to prevent gyno, or at least hyperplasia in that area, right? Rapid growth in that area. Because how many people have we talked to that were on legitimate Masteron and Primobolan that developed gyno?
It's anecdotally it's held true, and whether that is SERM or aromatase inhibition, whatever way we view the two of them working. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like TRT plus, you rarely ever see gyno develop over TRT plus other aromatizing androgens like D-ball or whatever.
Yeah,
right. So the medical application of topical DHT cream, Androctim, is not penis enlargement. It's actually estrogen shrinkage, or a gynecomastia shrinkage. It's a gynecomastia medication. So you have the titty cream for the ladyboys. They put estradiol on their breasts. Yeah. I'm in Thailand, and I have to mention it. So it's actually being sold in the pharmacies here. And then you have the topical DHT cream, who does the opposite. That's the medical uses of Androctim cream. You rub it on your breast, and it resolves the gynecomastia. So instead of going to Raloxifene or Tamoxifene, maybe get that on standby, or use some sort of DHT derivative that has scientific evidence to impair aromatase enzymes or estrogen-mediated gene transcription, or breast cancer studies to back it up. So maybe every cycle should consist of test and Masteron, or test and Primo, or test and Dutasteride. Or not use a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, so your DHT is high enough to inhibit the estrogen. Yeah. But then again, plenty of guys get gyno and TRT, so and no finasteride. So I think that's the best way to prevent it, and keeping your body fat levels down.
Yeah, I mean, you look at then how estrogen is cleared, phase 1, phase 2 metabolism, what we covered before. Mm-hmm. Vitamin deficiencies like B6. B12, folate, magnesium, copper to an extent.
Yeah.
If even glutathione for helping to clear 4-hydroxyestrone. And again, if we're looking at the metabolites of estrogen, 4-hydroxyestrone is the worst offender for DNA damage in men. And then 16-hydroxy can be proliferative. It tends to be proliferative in females. Not much evidence towards men, but if the female is to go by, 16-hydroxy is a proliferative estrogen towards cancer in theory. That you'd want to be looking again at how well is your liver handling your internal metabolism of estrogen, your gut health with glucuronidation, xenoestrogens, like the whole thing about lavender, and there's a lot of case studies we all remember of the kids developing gyno from lavender-based bath shampoos and essential oils.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And again, lavender is one of the main offenders. So again, if you're on contest prep and you're spraying lavender all over your bed sheets and pillows, and you're wondering why you're all watery and potentially have high estrogen symptoms, you're just bathing in a potential xenoestrogen to help you calm down.
Soy products.
Yeah, soy to an extent. I mean, soy is an interesting one because on one side, the phytoestrogens can have positive benefits, and on your side, you have negatives. Mm-hmm. I think it all comes down to how well the system handles them, whether there's an overload, and what can actually act as a like for like ligand of the estradiol receptor. And that's going to vary person to person based on how they express the estrogen receptor as well. So I think it's not just about when guys use the AI, you talk about like the bathtub analogy. You've stopped producing estrogen from blocking aromatase's function, but you've still got to drain the bath, which is your excretion pathways, where that's, pissing it out or shitting it out. You need to make sure that phase 2 metabolism is doing its job, whether you have adequate sulfation, glucuronidation, glutathione conjugation. You could have genetic defects and those things as well. It's not just take the AI and you're done. You still have to deal with the bottleneck of estrogen that's present, and that comes down to
the bile acid excretion and the enterohepatic recirculation, making sure you get enough fiber. And then I think it's also problematic to go from high estrogen to low estrogen, because then you don't produce enough bile acids, and then you get constipated. I mean, how many guys do I have a little bit of high estrogen, 2.5 milligrams letrozole per day, baby. And then they can't poop.
Especially during peak week.
Yep.
And you've got a big distended belly on stage from all the shit that's inside you.
Save that for the next episode. He's pregnant. No, that's finasteride. Or what is it? Letrozole. So, I think we have a couple options, maybe not so many prevention strategies as hair loss, because again, hair loss is mostly transient. And gyno is just from one phase to the next. And if you're in that later stage where you have fibrosis and actual gyno tissue, then surgery is that's
the only way.
Yeah. Or you get so fat that you mask it and that it's a non-issue. And then you probably have other things going on. Cytokine storm. Insulin resistance, hemoglobin A1C is so high. It's the masked gyno. So, I think surgery is S tier for sure, but there's a lot of things you can do to prevent it. Yeah.
Yeah, still.
Do you guys think that the gyno surgery is more risky or the hair loss surgery?
From going through.
I mean, I guess gyno, right? Technically, it's more open.
Bigger surgery.
You're open.
Yeah.
I was going to say, from the two of them, gyno was probably a lot more invasive and sore. Yeah. Like pretty much from here down to my belly button was black and blue with bruising. A lot of discomfort the first 24 hours. Like you've got drain tubes coming out the side of your pec, and quite a lot of fluid being drained out. And then the recovery from it was a lot sore, like the hair transplant. The initial, like I said, the injections into your scalp, front and back for the anesthetic was about to resort to the pain. The gyno surgery was a lot more invasive. But in saying that, it really depends on the surgeon. Was yours done under local or general, Steve?
Local.
I thought you said local. So you were awake when he done it.
Yeah.
I was knocked out when he done.
I was awake for the LASIK eye surgery and awake for the leg surgery.
So
you got to be present.
Be present.
I've been sleeping 8 hours a night my entire life, so might as well stay awake. I have a good discussion with the doctor during all the surgeries. Yeah, the LASIK eye surgery I would like to be under full anesthesia. Though that was. Dude, literally, the lasers in your eye, opening the flap, you don't see anything. You hear this noise, and then they put the flap back, you see perfectly, and then they stitch it all together.
No, thanks. I think
it's the worst surgery I've ever done.
You wanted to be awake for the birth of your gyno child, and not for me.
I could literally, like, the local anesthesia was very, very good, right? So I could feel them pulling on my body and stuff, but I didn't feel any pain. And then the weird thing is when they go in for the liposuction, they go in through the armpit. So you're extended here. They go through in here, and then they kind of start sewing all of this off with it's literally a dreidel, basically. It's like a very long pin with the spinning top, and it just starts scooping it out and sculpting it. Jesus Christ! If I knew this was going to happen, I would have been under the anesthesia. But I don't know. I just figured I might as well be present in case they need to ask me some questions or something. I'm happy with the result, though. They could have taken a little bit more fat out, to be honest. They could have, but maybe it's scar tissue. I'm not sure. That's okay. It's all good. Yeah, I think the gyno surgery is a little bit more invasive and also a little bit more risky because we've talked to so many people that have done it twice or 3 times. Right? Paul has done it 3 times, and then he
I have a client that's done it 4. The surgeon doesn't take enough out. He keeps going. He's not paying. He hasn't paid for the last 3, but the surgeon keeps going back in. But he's a competitor, so it takes away from our off season.
Yeah, it takes away from your progress. And the more surgery you do in the same space, you see that with the plastic surgeons. After a while, it doesn't heal so good anymore. Like I've done surgery on my leg now twice. Right? Once to put the plate in and once to put the plate out. And after the second surgery, I feel that the blood flow to my skin is impaired. So every time I get a little wound in that area, it takes forever to heal, dude. And now I got like this, when people get diabetes and they get this elephant foot and it's a little bit discolored. That's what I get now on this area because it's been the second surgery. So I'm probably going to have to laser that area to kind of get my skin texture back.
I've got a small little patch of hair missing on the bottom of my right ankle from the surgery when I smashed my foot kickboxing, and that's obviously local nerve damage where the hair, the blood flow to that area is just gone. So hair is dead.
Could do a transplant for that as well.
Yeah, transplant, leg transplant, hair transplant.
So let's start classifying these preventions and treatments into the S to F tier. Let's see. Let's start with Raloxifene. Where would you say that is? Again, assuming that you're in the first stage.
A,
because it's F tier. Like it will reduce it 50%. At 120 milligrams per day by reducing the inflammation and maybe the tissue. But then as soon as you stop, the tissue will fill up again and you still get that full-blown gyno. So I think if you use it early enough, it's A or S tier. But if you use it too late, then it's F tier.
Yeah, so it's averaged out, put in the middle.
Yeah.
I think between Raloxifene and Tamoxifene, they sort of fall into the same place. And for the love of God, don't use Clomid as a serum to offset gyno. I'm going to shrink my gyno while boosting my fertility.
Yeah.
I think, I'd say A if intervened early enough, but it's only if you then go do blood work to check where your serum level is.
So let's just assume people are not so stupid to use it as a last line treatment, but first in line treatment, and they have it on standby. So at the first hint, the gyno, boom, the Raloxifene goes in, or the Tamoxifene, because again, not everybody has access to the Raloxifene, but Tamoxifene is usually on most underground lab lists. Again, it has an added benefit of the norendoxaphene acting as an aromatase inhibitor. So Tamoxifene is a prodrug for metabolites that have various effects. One of them is a serum, and the other one is an AI. Raloxifene is not an AI, but it blocks the receptor better, but the dosage is also 4 times higher. So again, assuming you're going to do blood work right after you start dosing the Tamoxifene and Raloxifene, and again, 1 dose of Tamoxifene is not enough to bring your estrogen really down. And you would use the Tamoxifene and Raloxifene for as long as you need, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to bring the inflammation and puffiness down. And then depending on what you were using, you would transition or start using an aromatase inhibitor to manage your estrogen accordingly. And then again, if you run a progestogenic 19-OR, your estrogen is in range, or growth hormone and your estrogen is in range, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, maybe take the 19-OR out and replace that for a DHT derivative. Because the anabolism is, depending on the dosage, you can always manipulate the dosage, but the gyno would be expensive to get rid of. So let's put Tamoxifene or Raloxifene in A tier. Because again, it still has a little bit of a manual on how you use it. Aromatase inhibitors, personally, I would say is B tier, because you can still get gyno on aromatase inhibitors if you run them preventatively through this progestogenic signaling of nandrolone, trenbolone, and trestolone, or prolactin. But it's unlikely. Feel free to disagree.
A minus or B. I think in terms of how it's going to offset gyno prophylactically, like I said, if you just run an AI straight out the gate, you're at risk of low estrogen, and low estrogen equals hair loss or joint dysfunction or low libido or whatever that. I think as a strategy to alleviate gyno, you'd block the receptor first and then reduce the estrogen load. And then the AI has to be supported with lifestyle intervention. So yeah, I probably agree B.
Yeah.
I'd never say, if someone was starting a cycle, the serum is more important on hand, check bloods, and then the AI. And it's no big deal if you have to wait a week to source an AI if you've got the serum on hand. But again, it's not something that, you're starting to develop gyno, straight away use an AI. It'd be the other way around. So
yeah,
I think
we get a serum first and then the AI. Yeah.
I think the AI would be B.
Then again, the AI could prevent a lot of people from developing gyno in the first place, assuming they keep your estrogen favorable.
Yeah.
So it could be S tier. Let's put it fucking in A. Because again, it's not the immediate relief. The immediate relief is Raloxifene, but it's first line in defense, actual prevention. Even though you can still get some sort of symptom of gyno by localized aromatization or progestogenic signaling or prolactin signaling. So let's put it in A. I'm not
I agree with that.
Yeah. All right. What about the Masteron, Primobolan, Dutasteride, or other DHT derivatives to prevent gyno? Is that better than aromatase inhibitors, assuming your estrogen is in range, or also a little bit on the same?
Probably on the same in my mind.
I'm going to say B in terms of, the reason why I'm saying B is because it's not predictable in terms of.
True. Yeah.
100 milligrams of Masteron is going to offset gyno. It's very inter-individual, whereas, with Raloxifene, Tamoxifene, Aromacin, there's predictable pharmacokinetics. With
I agree.
TRT plus, you're getting into a bit of like magician territory where people are then like, well, how much should Masteron or Primobolan should I take to offset gyno? It's like, there is no magic number.
No, that's true.
Yeah, perhaps start at 1:1, in terms of milligram per milligram. But again, ester weights and molecular weights, you're just doing a pure assumption of this is how much test I'm using. So I'm going to counter it with just as many molecules, or if not fewer molecules, because the DHT derivatives are less in terms of molecular weight on dosage. There's no predicted dose. So I'd only say it's B because you don't have an anchor of, I need to put this much in.
But if you run a higher dose, then it's very unlikely to get gyno.
Well, correct, yeah. But if gyno started to develop,
same with Raloxifene.
We're getting into like starting Primobolan and Masteron prophylactically to offset gyno.
Just like Thomasartan, baby. Come on.
If that was your cycle, fair enough. You're probably at low risk of high estrogen developing. But if it's sort of like, I'm developing gyno, so I'm just going to chuck in a load of Primobolan and Masteron. I've done it before. I worked with someone, very high chance of winning their pro card with the overall with the European shows, and their coach, very good like consult client of mine, had a competitor who sort of flared 3 days before the stage with like high estrogen symptoms, visually and everything else. And we implemented quite a high dose of Masteron propionate, 3 days before the show to try and shift the balance. Now, is that based on, we need to put in X amount of Masteron to overcome what's going on here? Absolutely not. But given what was available and how the look of the competitor was and the skew of estrogen and water retention, etc., putting in the big massive dose of the DHT, acting like a potential serum or aromatase inhibitor, within 48 hours, it was a completely different competitor. Yeah. But that's not, you can't just turn around to an average person who's developing gyno and saying, just take 600 or 800 milligrams of Masteron.
2 grams. What are you talking about? 2 grams low test, 2 grams of Masteron. Let's go. Let's go, baby. Testosterone propionate because Enantate is not available. So 20 mils test prop and you'll not have gyno, which I think will play out, but it's probably a better way to have anti-gynecomastia strategies in place. So yeah, I can agree to B tier, but I think if the dose is high enough, it's S tier.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to develop gyno if you have legit high Primo and high Masteron and it's far exceeding your testosterone dose. But
yeah,
I wouldn't use it as a strategy that if you're developing gyno, rush out and get Primo or Mast.
It's probably Raloxifene is faster. Yeah, it's faster. What about the micronutrients and the antioxidants to prevent gyno? I would say that that's less effective than in the context of hair.
Yeah, they're needed, but yeah.
I think B/C, but gut health and excretionary health is very important to reduce that estrogenic burden. So I'd say I wouldn't like to put food quality and like antioxidant status as a C, because then people are just not view it as important. I think B, adequate glutathione, adequate fiber, making sure that you've got like adequate sulfation and glucuronidation, so that's, taking supplements that improve sulfate, taking magnesium sulfate baths, Epsom salt baths, taking calcium D-glucarate.
Yeah.
DIM, you have to be very careful because DIM increases it'll increase the amount of estrone you make. So the whole point of DIM working is to reduce estradiol to push it to estrone so that your liver can excrete the estrone. It doesn't magically lower your estradiol. If anything, it'll make estrone, which is a potent estrogen in males as well. Like it's biologically active like estradiol. So you're not doing anything with DIM to lower estradiol in terms of like estrogen activity. You're lowering estradiol in number, but you're creating a further bottleneck further on down. So even, white button mushrooms, they tend to have high aromatase, natural aromatase inhibiting properties. There's, forgetting what you call the compound in white button mushrooms, but it was a supplement at one point, and that has aromatase
like lion's mane or something.
No, that's the 5-alpha reductase inhibitor.
The white button mushrooms, small little white button mushrooms.
Indole 3-carbondiol.
I don't think it's indole 3-carbondiol. It's something else, but white button mushroom extract done the rounds as a supplement for anti-estrogen years ago, or anti-estrogen products. You can get the same from obviously eating white button mushrooms, but again, similarly, it's not going to have the same efficacy as a pharmaceutical. So useful, cover all your nutrient bases, cover your detox capability, scan your environment. Don't be breathing in loads of lavender oil or lavender candles and whatever else in your environment, fragrances, because again, that adds up. Really good book, Estrogeneration, I think it's called.
I've heard about that. Yeah,
Dr. J. Anthony.
Going to
PBAs and red food coloring, and there's so many things when you look at it. Don't heat your food in plastic. That there's Xenoestrogens. That's the whole thing of heating your food in glass Tupperware if you can. Don't store cooked food and plastic water. Plastic bottles and water. I get some of the things behind it, but there's going to be some level of microplastics.
My brain is filled with microplastics at this point.
But there's some good research that humic and fulvic acid can help with excreting out microplastics from the gut. So again, it just depends on where the microplastics are stuck in your body. Yeah. But yeah, all these things play into your estrogen burn as well that could offset gyno.
What about keeping your body fat levels in check? You can still get gyno, but I think it contributes.
Yeah, probably A.
You're not getting gyno.
Yeah, I think A, trying to keep your body fat like 10 to 12%. The golden rule, I think, is sub 15 if you want to be on cycle.
Yeah. I'd be surprised how many guys start at 20%. I need that motivation to get lean.
Just get going.
Just get going, man. I think that's pretty much it, besides gynecomastia surgery, which is obviously S tier. But it means we only have gynecomastia surgery in S tier, and everything is like A and B.
Yeah.
which is unfortunate because that means that gynosurgery is the only way to really even prevent it.
I mean, if you can afford to have your nipple glands taken out and you want to be a high-level competitive bodybuilder, you've just eliminated one thing they have to worry about. Like, you'll never have to worry if all of
you take it out preventatively, but I think you would still need to have some sort of tissue there just to make sure that the doctor takes everything out.
Yeah.
Because that's what I did. I didn't want to do 2 surgeries, so I purposely grew it.
Well, that's what you'd want. You'd want to have something there to take out and make sure that there was no microscopic cells left behind, because as soon as they're the things that will start growing. But like if you're a serious high level and you have great promise to be a professional and you don't want to worry about gyno being something that grows during your professional career, or you have the unfortunate genetics of having high aromatase activity, rather than mess about with Raloxifene and whatever else, taking it out.
You just do one heavy off cycle with testosterone and mint, grow it, wear a big hoodie all the time, don't let anybody hug you for like 8 months, do the surgery, get rid of it while you're deloading and cruising. And then the next time you show up, large and in charge with no puffy nipples. It worked for me, and many people that I advised that had gyno, like, just fucking grow it for 6 months and then do the surgery. And they did it. And after that, they had no, like, I did a test decanandrolone, whatever cycle. Estradiol was like 150. No inflammation, no water retention, no nothing. You know, I didn't feel good on 150 estradiol, obviously, so I still tried to bring it down a little bit. But yeah, the gyno didn't come back at all.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I think you still have to think that when you take out the nipple gland, you're not going to get gyno, but you can still have high estrogen symptoms, whether that's like blood pressure or neurologically or whatever. Just, you don't have to worry about gyno developing.
Yeah. I think not listening to influencers who allow your estrogen to run rampant, unless it's for a purpose, I think that's S tier also. Avoid shitfluencers. I'm going to put avoid shitfluencers. Aromatase inhibitors are the devil, bro. Bone mineral loss.
Look at the evidence properly, please. And no one's saying that you put your estradiol at 0. That's why I said
that's what they think. That's what they assume.
selective pharmacology. Use your aromasin intelligently and put your estrogen.
You don't use the medical dosages, you mean, for breast cancer.
No. Just get it in range.
25 milligrams daily, and then you wonder why your estrogen is going to go. Unless you're taking so much testosterone that you need that much aromasin every day. 25 milligrams.
I've done it, yes. So on 2.5 grams of test, I was on 25 milligrams of aromasin per day. My estrogen was about 50 something.
So again, what we're talking about, 25 milligrams lowering estradiol synthesis by about 65% in a cohort of 80 kilogram males. We're talking about just an athletic cohort that took the drug and were measured. I mean, you start getting into the territory of like 120 kilo males who have a lot more tissue, a lot more potential fat mass that could create aromatase, genetics on top. You might need beyond that dose, but 25 milligrams lowering by 65% is your starting point that you can do a bit of it, an anchor from intelligently. That doesn't mean take it every single day.
Yeah. I mean, guys, if you're on Trenbolone, go do sensitive testing, because if you're on Trenbolone, it might detect as estradiol, and I think your estradiol is high, but in reality, it's just Trenbolone detecting as estradiol, and now you might overdo the aromatase inhibitors. So Trenbolone is a 6 weeks love affair. Check your estrogen before that time, dialing your aromatase inhibitor dose, and then get on the Trenbolone sandwich, or do liquid chromatography tandem mass spectrometry. Otherwise, you don't get an accurate reading. Because again, there are some overlapping negative effects, and then they stop the trend, they continue the aromatase inhibitor, and the estrogen is 0, and they're constipated.
I've seen estrogens of well over 500 picomolar from Tren use, which is what,
5,000 nanograms per or picograms per milliliter. Yeah, it was on a gram of Tren.
A lot of Tren.
My wife during pregnancy was also over 5,000 picograms per milliliter, but she was legitimately pregnant and her HCG was like off the scale, like 10,000 IUs or something. You know? So yeah, I mean, that's definitely, and that's why it's important to understand the samples group of what you're researching, because otherwise, yeah, it's 5,000. Well, is it in pregnant men or Trenbolone abusing, pregnant women or Trenbolone abusing men?
I mean, nowadays you never know. It could be pregnant men.
Yeah, it could be pregnant.
In the U.S., sure.
Yeah, it's in Thailand also. There's a lot of pregnant men here. I identify as pregnant. Yeah. And is there anything we can classify as C, D, or E, or F tier regarding gyno? Or everything kind of works, but it's context dependent?
No, I think the only like F tier advice would be someone just giving you a genetic. You've already got gyno formed, and someone is selling you on online forums of the letrozole. I think letrozole could be E or F in terms of...
Yeah, if you already have gyno, it's fully formed, and then they say 2.5 milligrams letrozole. Yeah, that's terrible advice.
Yeah, and in my case, I used it as soon as it started, like, it was immediate within hours.
Right, yeah.
And I only used one dose, and it was just the glands swelled up.
Right, yeah, you take further burden of estrogen away.
And that was it, and I didn't use more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's all these protocols, 2.5 milligrams of letrozole daily with 120 milligrams of Raloxifene. Just run that for 4 weeks, bro, and you're
good to go.
Your gyno will shrink.
Yeah, why are my lipids so bad? Why are my joints hurt? I did a gyno prevention protocol, and now I tore my bicep.
Jeez.
Hey, you never know, man. What you need is Winstrol on top of this program. All right, so we got in S tier, gynecomastia surgery and avoid shit influencers that tell you to let your estrogen run rampant, because they obviously got a discount code with, gynecomastia surgeons. A is tamoxifene or raloxifene aromatase inhibitors, so that's aromacin, anastrozole, letrozole, micronutrients, antioxidants, detoxification, and body fat management. And then in B tier, even though I do think there's a place for it in most people's protocols, Masteron, Primobolan, and dutasteride. And then there's no C, D, E, or F tier. Those are basically F tier is everything that can cause gyno, like not using an aromatase inhibitor or high dose nandrolone cycles with low dose testosterone, something like this. Yeah. Anything that lets your estrogen surge or your prolactin surge is probably not a good idea. All right, we'll save the acne and gut. And I think that's a little bit less invasive and easier to manage than the hair loss and the gynecomastia. Yeah. I mean, the gut doesn't require surgery, and the acne, maybe some fractional laser therapy afterwards. After you look like Seal. What's this singer?
Oh, jeez.
He's probably got the worst acne scars out of everybody. I remember when Seal came, started becoming popular, and asked my mom, "What's wrong with his face? What happened?" It's like all these acne scars, and then you start seeing it in puberty. The kids in school. That's mostly donut induced. So we'll discuss that the next episode. We'll take a good solid 2 hours for that. Any parting words, or pretty much?
No, I think another interesting 2 hour discussion for us. Stay to the end.
Yeah. Cool. All right. No, we'll leave it there, guys. We'll see you next month discussing gut health and acne management. Both I have a lot of experience with. So, and I'm sure these two gentlemen as well. All their social media links are down below. We'll get some shorts going now that I'm back on Instagram at vanilla.vigorsteve. It won't be as spicy because all the spicy reels gets flagged. So, but we'll do our best to get the social media content going, man. All right, guys.
Thanks.
Peace out.
I'll see you.
Peace.
See ya.
Bye.